Q broadcast, it's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part, there are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
We live in a world where men are told it's harmless. It's just entertainment. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Pornography destroys. It weakens your spirit. It dulls your drive. And it robs you of what real intimacy is supposed to be. Every click is a step away from the man you're supposed to be. We can't call ourselves leaders if we are slaves to a screen.
As someone that is prior service, I know all about discipline. And discipline isn't out there, it's within your mind. Porn rewires your brain, weakens your will, wrecks all of your relationships. It doesn't just stay on a screen, it invades your marriage, your confidence, and your actual purpose. As men, if we don't learn to discipline ourselves, we'll be ruled by our impulses. Now, it is time to stand up and take control before this silent war takes more than you're willing to lose.
Real men don't hide in the shadows of shame. We step up and we protect what's ours. We fight for our wives and kids, our own hearts. Twitter isn't just an app, it's a weapon. It's a tool used to break free and start living like the man that you're meant to be. The battle's here and it starts with you. You can stop living in shame and you can break free today.
Of Q Broadcast, it's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q Broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access.
Here at the Anomic Age, we know that these times of uncertainty are stressful. It is incumbent upon all of us to put our fears first and bow down to government tyranny. Gone are the days of freely leaving your home, working, and social interactions. In exchange for safety, we will trade liberty. At the Anomic Age, we understand. However, just in case you want to get off your knees and stop being a sniveling coward, check out the John Age Project at anomicage.com.
Meet Anne Morrissey, who is here with her daughter, Dareth. Dareth is 17 years old. Mrs. Morrissey, I don't have to tell you that most parents would be extremely depressed if their daughter came home one day looking like this. I assume that was your response shock, anger, depression? What was it?
I was extremely angry. I really went bananas.
Yeah, how old was she when this happened?
Possibly 13, 14 years old.
We're talking like it's a disease, and
Well,
yeah. How did she explain it to you, Mrs. Morrissey?
there was very poor communication until we went into counseling. And it almost broke up our family. But through counseling and Serena, I can understand it better.
What do you understand?
That she feels like she doesn't want to be like everyone else, and she wants to be her own person. And through the dress code and her lifestyle, she's expressing this. It doesn't conform with our rules, but we're learning to cope, and it's a very, very difficult thing. Extremely difficult.
Dareth, let's let you talk for yourself. You're from Long Beach, California.
I just can't handle being like everybody else because that's what everybody else wants, you know. Just because somebody else does something does not mean that I have to do it. You know, I have my own morals and ideals, and I go by them.
Are you drug-free, Dareth?
Yes, I am.
Is this a political statement then? Do you have some misgiving about the society that you see?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems, you know. A lot of the people are really aware of what's going on, you know, and I don't like it, you know. There's a lot of problems. I don't like the way society is based.
What bothers you? Give us some of the misgivings you have.
The rich, the poor, the people starving, the wars, you know. Why can't, you know, everybody just get along and just live their life?
Alan Real and Chevy.
Open lines. You are listening to the John H. Project.
Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one.
You found it. You're here. You're headlong down the runaway train that is the Anomic Age. And I'm your host, John H. Happy to be back with you once again, hailing proudly from the coastal plains of the Old North State. I'll be your tour guide. Not coming at you in the evening, but in the late afternoon anyway, or early afternoon, depending on where you are. We got a great guest coming up. We got Chuck Bergman with us today. But before we get into that, please check out anomicage.com. It's the best you can find, the best place you can find, rather, all things me. We got the free iPhone app, the free Android app, subscribe by email link, which I'm trying to do better about. I'm trying to do better sending out those subscribe by email. So check that out. The free newsletter, so much more. It's right there at anomicage.com. If you're into the old shows, we got a ton of them up there still. As I always say, you can take me with you on trips. You can listen at the gym, you know, kind of whatever works best for you. It's all right there at anomicage.com. So check all that out in case you haven't already done so. Other good stuff we got to get into. Whoops, that's not what we got to get into quite yet. Sorry, Chuck. I was putting you on the screen early. We got to get into Chuck's bio. Chuck Bergman.com is the best place you can go to find all things Chuck Bergman. Chuck is a third-generation psychic medium born in Jacksonville, Florida. He discovered his psychic abilities at a young age, but chose to keep this aspect of himself private during his 32-year career as a police officer in Salem, Massachusetts. After retiring from the police force, Chuck embraced his gift fully and became a public figure in the field of psychic mediumship. His television appearances on the A&E channels and the biography channels include his own pilot program, Psychic Search, and these have helped bring attention to his abilities. Chuck has also been a frequent guest on live radio shows like Coast to Coast AM, discussing his experiences and insights as a psychic medium. Thank you so much, Chuck, for being with us today. And now you're on there.
Great. It's a pleasure to be here, John. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, man. Nice to meet you as well. It was funny. We were talking before the show just for a minute. And I was like, man, it feels like we've been talking before, but we haven't. But thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for your time. I know everybody's busy, especially in the summer with the family and the friends and everything. So thanks, man.
Great to be here. Really, really looking forward to whatever we have to talk about.
Well, man, there's so much. My goodness, we could talk about so many aspects of your life. I mean, a police officer in Salem, Massachusetts, that's got to be kind of interesting. I got to say, I went to Boston for I think a week at Thanksgiving, like some 20 odd years ago. And the people I was staying with were like, you want to go to Salem? And this was like 1 a.m. or something. So we drove over there and just just to say we did, I guess. It just kind of, wandered about the town for a good 15 minutes and drove back up there. But it was just, it was an experience. And I can't even fathom what that must be like as a police officer. I know you got a big tourist town there, and just the place has a bit of a creepy vibe. I mean, probably rightfully so.
I know. And I grew up in Florida. It was the military. I was in the Navy. And after being on an aircraft carrier that was decommissioned in Boston, that's how I ended up in Salem. So to me, it was a big, the old houses and the narrow streets and, everything about it, just character. And getting on the police department, even that was a weird thing that happened to me that, glad it did, because what an experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said you've had this psychic ability your whole life. It sounds like you got multiple generations there. I'm guessing mother or father, siblings as well, all sort of having this gift. What the heck was that like growing up? Or was it something that was even talked about? Or was it just kind of a, hey, you want a sandwich? It was like so normal. It was commonplace,
No, it wasn't until after my mom passed away that I learned that she was a medium. And so was her, her mom, my grandmother, that I love very much. Mm-hmm. No one else in the family does it. And even my dad was kind of like, I think he even kept my mom from using her abilities, even though I witnessed a few times. Well, one in particular where we were at the dinner table and she leaned over and she said, my heart, my heart. And she almost passed out to the point that my dad called 911. And then she, as sitting in a chair, and I didn't know anything about mediumship or what it was. And what was happening was her actual dad in Cardiff, Wales, was having a heart attack at that very moment and passed away. So here we are in America, in Florida, and she's sensing the pain and everything that's going with it. And I was too young to understand what mediumship was or what was going on. But after she passed away, I did have a cousin from England come over and vacation with us. And that's when I learned about meditating, connecting with spirit. I learned about a lot of stuff that I put to use almost every day now.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I don't know if it's just me, names out of a hat or what have you, but the last few guests, we've gotten to talk about consciousness quite a bit. And it's not even something that I went into it saying, I really want to talk about, but the last few guests, we've talked about consciousness. And I'm thankful that you're kind of getting into that too, because I think that's such an elephant in the room that a lot of people are just like, what are you talking about? But I think that's so important, just tuning into that. And I hate to say this, but the vibe, the vibrational frequencies, tuning into thyself, I think is so important, and it's good. And how'd you get into that at an early age, or or did you sort of frame that at a later age?
When actually, it's on my website too, the case I did with the local detectives on a murder case that I helped with. And this happened to be a murder case it was actually logged as a missing person. They had no evidence of a murder, but after I walked them through it and we went through what we went through, they reclassified it to a murder case. So I would have to say I've watched it develop over the years, especially after retirement, and I had plenty of time to dedicate, and I didn't have the stigma of having, a police department eyeballing everything I'm doing. Like once I was set free, I get to do my own thing, so it was kind of nice. But I got to admit, Salem was a good learning ground for what I was doing. We had mediumship classes. We had, and we would do stuff like you're talking about. I mean, I even learned stuff like a friend of mine I helped him write a book on more, what do you call it? When you're using your consciousness, like you said, to get into the moment, tune into consciousness. And he would do things like hold up an envelope, like that you can't see through or tell what's inside of it. And he would just say, "What's in the envelope?" And he recorded me doing this. And I didn't know that was even possible. I didn't know people could do stuff like that. And I remember the very first one, I said, "I don't know." But as soon as you held it up, I saw the presidential seal. And that's all I got, but nothing else. And when he pulled it out, it was a book of matches taken off Air Force One. So obviously there's a, presidential seal on it. But to me, that's all about the things we're able to do at a conscious, focused level, if that's what you want to do. And what a difference that can make. I'm very anti-cell phone, and people in restaurants, tapping away on their phones. And I see like mom and dad coming in with 2 or 3 children. The kids are on the phone, mom and dad are on the phone. And other than getting the bill, it's like there's no interaction. It's like we're not in focus. I know when I'm around people, I do the opposite. I don't have to turn the phone off, but it's going to take a lot to get me to look at it or answer it. But I'm certainly not going to scroll. I'm not going to do any of that. And that, to me, that all has to do with being in the moment, focusing on what's going on. And it's just like talking to you right now. I don't want to think about, I got to put new blades on my lawnmower to cut the yard later. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want that part of my brain to be active. I want to focus on what you and I are doing and enjoy the moment. Because later, when this becomes a memory, I want it to be unconfused. I want it to be the conversation that we had and, the elements that you and I got to cover.
I'm thinking that this is definitely something that's something you kind of have to hone, not to borrow from the lawnmower reference, but I think it's something you got to sharpen and you got to kind of keep working at. Am I wrong on that?
You're right on that. But I know when I started doing like meditation classes, and I didn't even know what meditation was, but I got invited to go to a class with a lady that gave me a reading. And it was funny, but during the reading, I thought it was BS. I didn't believe in, when a person's gone, when they pass away, they're gone, and that's the end of it. But during the reading, and this was a really good lesson for anyone listening that wants to go have a first time reading. When I sat in front of the lady, she held her palms up and said, "Oh, Chuck, your mother is here," and from spirit, and she's giving you a little present, and it's got a little gold bow on top. And I looked at her and said, "Oh, that's really nice of her." I didn't tell her that day was my birthday. So that little gift with a little bow on it, from my mother's perspective in spirit, was like, wow, I'm saying happy birthday to him, and he's not even acknowledging it. He's not accepting it. So I let it go. I thought, she didn't say birthday, so I'm not going to give her credit that little present meant a lot to me. So we go on with the reading. She did pretty good with it. And it wasn't until the reading was over and she said, "Hey, Chuck, if you have another reading, I really like your mom's energy. Would I, look her up and do another reading with her?" And I'm thinking, yeah, it's a business ploy. You want me to come back, pay for another reading. Then she nailed it. She said, I really like your mom and I love her British accent. Not knowing my mom's from Cardiff, Wales, lived in Jacksonville with a beautiful accent. People that knew her called her the British lady, the English lady. But I went a step further. I'm trying to think about that. She got my birthday right. She got about a lot of other things correct. But how did she hear an accurate vocal coming from my mom who no longer has vocal cords? But obviously she did to pick up on the accent. So that's what I do when I do any of this. I want to go a step deeper. And I've done that on murder cases. I've done it on missing persons. And even on fun little unexpected readings I've given people when I don't even think I had no intention of doing that. It just happened.
I know we don't have time for like a whole rundown on how to get meditative and stuff, but is there just some simple things that you do? I mean, you mentioned the phone thing, which I'm 100% for. My wife hates me sometimes because I'll just cut the phone in airplane mode most of the day. And then I'll cut it on if I need it. And then I'm like, oh shoot, I got 10 messages and 5, it's just, but I'm like, I don't want that mess around me. Just, the energy coming off that thing, I don't want anyway, but
that's exactly the way I feel. It's like, unless it's really important, okay, and I'll know because they'll come back 3 or 4 times or whatever. So you'll know about it. But I'm so much about, even when I'm on the computer and I'm really programming away or doing whatever I'm doing, if my son comes in, he lives here, he's in his early 20s. If he starts talking to me, I push away from the desk, turn to him, and just turn off the computer in my brain. And I want to be one-on-one. And it gives me the same respect, when I ask him about something, I don't see him over there playing on the phone or being distracted, I guess that's what it's all about. Because when you do mediumship, it's all about focus. You really do have to focus. And the weird thing about it is, you focus, but you don't control it. So you have to be like a radio receiver. You have to let the message come into you. And that's pretty much what it's all about.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, we got that little delay going on. You know how that is.
Yeah.
I thought if you like, I could give you a little story on what it felt like to get my very first meditation in. Because, people wonder, well, why would you go to meditation and what is it? So when I went, the instructor, Barbara Strafansky, I still talk to her today. We keep in touch. She owned a little angel shop. So I felt a little odd as a local cop on my day off going into the angel shop, to get a reading. And when I went into she invited me to attend the meditation group. So that was like 9 o'clock in the morning. I went in, maybe 10 people. And all we did is sit in a circle. We talked for a few minutes about, what we were going to do. And she put some soft music on. You listen to the music. And then whatever you saw or thought you heard or feelings or anything, when they go around the room, you just tell people, this is what I feel. This is where my energy is right now. So anyway, we did our little the music and everything stopped. And when it was over, I thought, well, I feel relaxed, but nothing magical here, no big deal. I remember thinking like kind of a waste of my morning, I don't think I'll ever come back. But here's the funny thing. I went around the room and each person had a little something to give, like, oh, I saw a beautiful waterfall, or I was at the beach, or, I saw the silhouette of my dad who passed away. It came to me and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't get any images, sounds. I didn't get anything at all. And then I looked around the room and it was so bizarre. An older lady was sitting next to me. I said, can I get you to stand up? And she did. I stood up out of my chair. I said, can you give me a hug? So I hugged her and I went, wow, that's so out of character for me to be that bold, and ask her, to give a hug. So anyway, after I hugged her, I said, And again, there was nothing in my brain at that moment. And I said, the hug isn't for me. The hug is, and I remember it word for word. The hug is from a young girl named Gail. She died in a car accident at the age of 25. And as I look at Gail now, I can see she was very pretty, very thin, and has long brown hair going all the way down her back, very long. I said, does any of that mean anything? And like I said, I'd never done a reading before, had no idea what this was all about. And she said, yeah, I can relate to it. My daughter, Gail, died at the age of 25 in a car accident. Oh, one important element. I said to the lady that I didn't even know, I said, she's got a message for you. The message is short. She just wants you to know, she said, I will be there. And that's all I got. It didn't mean anything. But she said, Gail was her daughter, died in a car accident. She said she was a vegetarian, very thin, beautiful long brown hair that went all the way down her back. She said, you've definitely described her and everything makes sense now. Gail's daughter is getting married next month. And I came here hoping to get a message that Gail would be at her daughter's wedding so she could go back and tell everyone that Gail is at the wedding. So they even set up a table and everything for Gail, which was okay. If you can imagine giving that as your very first message, when I walked out of that event, and it was in a little downtown area in Salem, I sat on a bench, and I can't tell you, people look like holograms walking by. They look like I could put my hand through their bodies. I can't tell you how vivid, how clear, and how the brain was just wide open to accepting what life is all about.
Man.
So that was my opening.
That's a pretty heavy opening, I gotta say. Good grief, man.
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And the wonderful people I get to meet, that's what this stuff is all about to me. Because there are a lot of people that are quiet about this, but they'll either go to psychics, mediums, and normally won't talk about it. But when they know what you do for a living, absolutely they open up. And I've met very, very wonderful people doing this.
Man, that's really interesting. I'll try not to personalize this, but I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of people out there where, I mean, death is the final frontier. It equalizes everybody, but it's something in my own personal life that's just, I'd say, has just vexed me for years. I can recall being like a real little kid and just, like pondering these big life questions, which is probably very out of character for a kindergartner or something. But, early on, really interested in ghost stories and stuff. This is when they still had actual newspapers and they'd run the usual suspect kind of Halloween, ghost stories of the town. And, oh my gosh, this was the most, enlightening thing. I was like, this is amazing. And then just kind of growing up, I don't know if it's, more death than the average person, but I feel like I've had a whole lot of death in my life. It's just friends from car accidents, suicide, everything. And the usual suspects, grandparents and stuff like that. But what is your whole experience sort of given you as far as insight into the afterlife? Because I think the afterlife is going to touch us all one way or the other before it's all over, said and done. So has anything really shed light on any of these big questions or, anything like that?
Yeah, what fascinates me is they know what we're doing. They're watching us. And my attitude is, my mom and dad say in spirit, they can travel at the speed of light. They can walk through the walls. They can go to other universes for all we know. You know what I mean? They've got all these options. And if there's a band playing and they want to see the band, they get a front row seat or they're up on stage. It's a different realm. There's no restrictions. So why would mom and dad hang around me watching me do this? And when I'm not doing this, I'm doing the dishes or vacuuming or, you know what I mean? Why would they hang around me? I look at our lives as very boring. But yet when I do readings for people, their loved ones always come up with, hey, yesterday I watched you do ABC, you know? And it always intrigues me how they don't miss a trick. They know what we're doing. And I just don't get why I would almost think like when I pass away and I've got all these other options, why would I come back to what I've been doing, you know, for the last long period of time? I don't think I would, but I know one thing you do is anyone you put energy into especially as a parent, you're going to come back and keep watch to see if what you did was bringing them up correctly. So you're going to learn even more from what you did when you were in the body, and you can help from the other side. I've had some rough times in my life where spirit would come in, whether mom, dad, or who knows who, and they would actually give me pointers on how to handle what was going on.
Wow.
So, and to me, they're always accurate and then very, very, very helpful.
That's good to know. I mean, my father passed away just a few years ago, and it's still problematic to me. So, I mean, this is something that you yourself have experienced, your own relatives still being around you and still trying to watch over and make sure you're doing a good job.
It's amazing how they're watching over all of us. I've got a really unique story on that if you've got a moment.
Please, by all means, man, please.
Because this is a little different and I hope she doesn't mind me telling the story, but it's my sister's husband. His name was Kenny, passed away. This is a little over a year ago. And I was at the funeral. And, you know, when I go to the funeral, I'm sure other people are looking at me going, what's he seeing? What's he hearing? What's he doing? You know, but to be honest, I'm doing the opposite. I'm seeing people that I haven't seen in a while. I'm talking to everyone and everything's normal. But this is really strange. I look up at the altar, you know, at the casket, and I see my mom and my dad kneeling and praying over Ken's body. And I went, wow, I didn't know they would show up at something like this, you know, and why would they need to? They get to see him in spirit as he joins them, you know. So, but I thought it was really odd that they were up praying, and they look like 30 years younger, very, very well dressed. Everything was great. Now, I didn't tell anyone what I saw because it's just not the right time to do it, you know. Anyway, everything was over. We went back to the reception at my sister's house, and when everyone left, I said, hey, make us a little drink. I got a story to tell you. So we had a little drink. We're sitting down, and I said, I just want you to know, Mom and Dad were there. They really looked beautiful. They were very happy, kind of leaning into each other and praying over your husband, Ken. And then I said, and John, I hope you get this with our age group. I said, am I weird for noticing this and then talking about it? But our dad was wearing a long sleeve pink shirt. And in my dad's world, men didn't wear pink.
That's the truth.
You know, you had to be a man. You had to be manly. I said, isn't it odd that Dad chose to wear pink to the funeral? But then I found out. She said, well, you didn't know about this, but a couple of days ago, the undertaker called her and said, my sister Linda, could you come down and maybe bring a better shirt? The one that we have for him is more like a Western cowboy look. We would like something a little dressier. She said, yeah, he got some new shirts in the closet. So she went through a couple and decided on a long sleeve pink shirt to put on Ken. So she took it down, put it on. Everyone loved it. The morning of, the event, they opened, the casket. My sister went over to see how he looked. And the pink shirt is gone. And he's wearing a cowboy shirt again. So she says, come here, what happened? Where's the pink shirt? And I guess family had a disagreement over him wearing a pink shirt. So they had him take the pink shirt off, put the other shirt on. But I want to analyze what happened there. My dad knew that was bothering his daughter, my sister. He knew that I would notice the pink shirt, and he knew that I would mention it to her. So there he is next to Mom wearing what I perceived as a beautiful pink shirt on him, not knowing that that very morning they were dealing with that very topic. So I'm just showing you how sometimes they'll help us in ways that we're not even expecting.
That's so wild, man. That's so insane.
Isn't it? It's like, and I've done, and in the past, I still do computer programming. And when you're doing programming and something's not doing what you wanted it to do, you always go back and analyze every little step. And that's what I do with mediumship too, whether it's a murder case or a missing person, no matter what I'm doing, I always go back and say, everything was correct, but this one item, where did I go wrong? And typically it's not that I went wrong, it's just that the interpretation can go in more than one direction.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot. It is a lot deeper than just getting happy little messages and giving it to people.
How is it working with law enforcement? I know you're a retired officer, so your background's got to give you at least some cachet, hopefully amongst the officers. But I realize your unique ability and skill set might also kind of, I guess it's a station by station basis, or is there, we need some help.
You get it right.
We're
yes.
calling you, Chuck. Please give us some help,
Well, I don't want to talk negative, but I sometimes do get negative. One in particular, a detective called. They needed me to travel pretty far away, from Jacksonville to Miami.
Ooh, yeah.
And they wanted me to help them with a case, not to pay me to help. They just wanted me to come down and, do it on my credit card. But, and I didn't mention money. I didn't mention any of that. But I found it odd where they said, we've agreed that if I'll come down and help them and then, come back home again, that they would pay for half of my fuel in my car. And I think, like, how did they even arrive at that? I mean, half of it? I mean, so I said, well, how am I going to get home?
Yeah.
And
Jeez.
I'm just letting you know there. And then another one I did where it was a murder case. And I went and gave some really good information. We were at a round table, and one of the detectives, one of the females, said, well, I was hoping to hear from my grandmother, right in the middle of information coming out on a poor man that was murdered. I said, then book a reading with me. And I got up and left. I said, it just turned me off. It's like, I'm doing a service for them at no charge. And yet that's not enough. They want more and more and more, which I would have been happy to, but not in the middle of giving, very important information on, a murder.
Yeah.
It was a very sad case too. Typically I don't do the light ones. It's always a heavy duty case that they can't really, or they need help solving. Those are the ones that get called in on.
I mean, aside from the law enforcement, I'm sure you have sort of worked with family members that have the police have given up and the family's still going, well, what about my daughter, husband, uncle, have you worked in that capacity? I'm thinking it might be a little bit better.
I have, and even local people here in my area that are experiencing that, where law enforcement, they've hit a brick wall or they just don't want to help.
Yeah.
And if nothing else, I confirm what the family believed to be true, but I always want more to it. I'm very big on validations. Quick example is I had one where a guy from California missing for 8 months. And when I told the family I'm connecting with your son now, I want a little bit more. I want to prove that it's him. I said, he's standing next to a green Chevrolet pickup truck. Is that his truck? And they said, yes. And I said, as I sit inside the truck, the windshield is filthy, hamburger wrappers, vodka bottles, you name it. I said, I could never drive this because I want it spotless. I want it clean.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they laughed and they said, oh no, you're in his vehicle. And in fact, that turned out weird. He had been missing for 8 months. And during the reading, I said, I'm getting a location on him, but I know you're in California, no idea where. We originated over a phone call. So I don't know where they're located. I said, take out a map, go north 020 degrees, And I was seeing that number like floating by in the air, like in 3D numbers, like 020 degrees. And they said, okay, from our house, 020 degrees, we've got a location, you know. I said, draw it right off the map. And then I'm asking him, how far? 139 miles. I thought, that's kind of odd. Why would you break it down like that?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, told the dad, 139 miles up the line, put an X. And I said, that should put you in an area where it's a 3-letter word, and I can't tell what the other word is, but it's 2 words, and it's it turned out to be a Sierra Nevada mountains. And when the wordings I gave him, I think I gave him the S and the N. So Sierra and Nevada. So that came out. Within 24 hours, they had the body. But the weird part was the mother called me a couple of days later. I love the follow-ups I get, you know, where people are so grateful. She said it was so weird after they found the body, you know, 24 hours after the reading. She said, we left the police station there, got on the highway, and the signs that list her hometown, their hometown was listed 139 miles. So it's like, maybe he had been up in those mountains, and he was a rock climber. So maybe he'd been up there before. He knew that they would see that sign, you know, and that's why he gave me the 139. Because I always wondered, why didn't you just say 150, 140? And when I gave the information on that case, they actually flew a helicopter over and spotted, because they said the body is laying next to his green Chevrolet pickup truck. And that's exactly where they found the body. So
wow. Was it just off the road or something?
And no, he had died next to the truck. He'd actually fallen, was injured, was trying to get back in the truck to go to a hospital or whatever, and didn't make it. So, but they did find his remains next to the truck.
Jeez.
And there was a lot more.
It was so gratifying for the family.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of these people, I still hear from them 10, 20 years later, like, just want you to know we're thinking about you at Christmas time. You get a nice little card from them, a nice little message. And unfortunately, I work with so many, sometimes I don't even remember the case. And I think that's awful, because this was the world to the people that you help, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
man, we talked a little bit about this before the show, but I got to ask you more on this, on the dreams aspect, because that's the only element of this that I have any semblance of similarity to your ability. But just dreams over the years, I've had scary dreams when you look back on them, but you know, the ones that really feel, you're going to remember, and you're always going to like, oh man, I remember that, you know. But a lot of them with people that have passed on. And, you know, I'll just relate this really quick one. I used to skateboard with this kid, and, you know, good friends, and he passed away his senior year of high school. And this dream still stirs me, because I remember having this dream where he and I were skating, and we were having a great time. And then I had that sort of aha moment in the dream where I was like, holy cow, this is a dream and you're dead. You know, like that's what I had in the dream. Yes. And he just kind of looks at me and says, don't worry about it. And, you know, we just kept skating, and it still kind of gives me chills thinking about it. But, you know, something that's probably commonplace to a lot of people that have had those similar dreams. You know, have you had anything like that, or any information on stuff like that?
Many times where I'll even say, I know you're dead, but I know we're still in a dream. Yeah. And I know that this is all supposed to be. We're supposed to be communicating right now. I can't explain that, but it's weird. You know, I had a similar one where after I went through a divorce, probably feeling lonely or something, but in my dream, the lady was really beautiful and everything, and I'm hugging her, and I went to give her a kiss, and I remember drawing back in the kiss and saying, wait a minute, I'm dreaming right now, but I could feel the moisture on your lips. I could feel the temperature. It felt like a real kiss. Mm-hmm. And I remember being fascinated that I knew I was dreaming, but picking up on the quality of what we're getting during a dream. And it just hit me. Maybe it's conditioning. You and I are, you're on a monitor, you've got speakers, we've got limitations. But in the dream, you don't have those limitations. So maybe there's even more we could get from a dream, and we're not doing it because we don't realize that that's available to us.
Yeah.
See what I mean? See what I mean about the programming? It's like, wait a minute. If I can do this with
a backslash or something in the programming.
Yeah, why can't I do that? Yes. Oh, yeah. Programming is one little mistake either way. And you're sitting there scratching your head like, how do I fix it?
Oh, man. Yeah. And what about...
I like where you're at with it. I like that you're paying attention to it.
Yeah. I mean, I've had several of those over the years. I'll give you a little short one again. This couple years back, my wife's father passed away early in the year, and my father passed away at the end of the year. And at the beginning, right after her father had passed, I think I had a dream, and it was another one of my friends that had passed away. And it was a similar scenario where I was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, I'm here to help you with your loss. That's the one thing that he said. And then it just went out the window. And I woke up being like, what in the, I mean, I was not close to my father. I mean, my father-in-law, really, he was my wife's father, but we weren't close. And then, so that just left me sort of like, what loss, and then end of the year, I went, aha, now that makes sense. Yeah.
It's odd. And I don't usually do this for people or do like a spontaneous reading, but it was odd and I know where to look when like spirit's going to show me an image or a message or whatever. And I know when it's not there, I know it's totally empty. But when you mention her dad, when you cup your hand over like money, especially if you got silver coins, like silver dollars, and maybe you've got a lot of them, I saw a hand dropping coins. So can you relate to coins being important, either with her dad or even with yourself? They were good size coins, but I'll take any format of any. And I know I wasn't seeing this normally.
I don't know how much to say on that one on the air, but there was definitely an element, not necessarily of coins, but I'll just say for my wife and her sibling, there was an element of how are we going to pay for all this, or what's going to happen with his, because he was someone that didn't prepare. I'll kind of leave it vague, and I'll definitely be happy to speak to you at the end on that one.
We see where we're going, and maybe coins would make me feel like not enough money, which is what he's trying to talk about. And maybe that would be kind of a highlight as far as of all the things he could talk about. They can't just come out and say, tell my daughter I love her. I mean, every medium could make that up, and some do. That's all they get. But my point is, when you were speaking, I was watching the hand dropping coins or money, and it was coins and not bills or checks or. So
that is wild.
Maybe that's what he's bringing up with that. And another thing with a reading is they'll start off with something small, and then the more we agree with it, the more I tune in, the more they're able to give. Sometimes I get to hear them, see them, and have a back and forth like you and I are.
Yeah.
Probably one story I tell on a lot of podcasts because it's so remarkable. This is one where a young girl called and she said, my sister and I live in Jacksonville. We want to come over for a reading. Great. We set up a time and date. And as they sat there, they're in front of me, and I had an empty sofa on the right. And I look over and I saw a lady, but as vivid as I'm looking at you, I see an older lady. She's even got a hat on with a little, remember when someone would pass away, that little veil?
Oh, a little veil, veil. Of course.
Yeah, and I'm looking at her, and she's got her purse in her lap. So mentally or telepathically, I said, oh, are you here for the two young girls? And she said, yes, they're my daughters. And she said, I was admitted to the hospital about a month ago with pneumonia. Things went bad, and I died in the hospital. So now I've got something to compare it to. I said, girls, are you here for mom? Yes. Did she have pneumonia, die in the hospital very unexpectedly? Yes, yes, yes. So everything made sense until I'm looking at them like I'm looking at you, and I hear a man's voice. Hey, Chuck, tell them I'm here. And I look, the lady's still sitting there, and I almost passed out. Sitting next to her is Ray Charles.
What? Good grief.
Yeah, Ray Charles. So I went, oh my God. So anyway, I look away from him and I'm talking to the girls. Then you're probably thinking I'm nuts because I did. I thought, why am I seeing this? I said, I'm talking to the girls about mom's giving me more stuff. And now I keep looking over. Who wouldn't? Because he's calling my name. Hey, Chuck, do this. Hey, Chuck, do that. Tell him I'm here. Tell him. And mentally, I'm saying, Ray, if I tell them you're here, they're going to get up and they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to leave. So finally, I thought of a way. I said, I guess when you go to heaven, there are no walls. If you want to go see Elvis Presley, if you want to go talk to him, and maybe even God and Jesus, maybe you can sit before them and have a conversation. I don't know. I don't know what they get to do up there. But your mother, just let me know, was she a real big fan of Ray Charles? They freaked out on me. Yes, yes, yes. What I didn't know, I'm reading Ray Charles's two sisters. They booked a reading with me, had no idea who they were, had no idea who they wanted to contact. So yeah, that now it makes sense that he would show up and be sitting on my sofa. And when another benefit when the reading was over, which was amazing, he was really strong, really powerful, came up with good stories. The one sister, Lovey, went out to her car and brought in the Ray Charles family photo album. And I got to turn the pages. Ray Charles, even in the very first photo, Ray Charles over in Jacksonville, sitting on a riding lawnmower, smiling from ear to ear with the lady, his mom, standing behind him. And the two sisters were behind mom. So they were all in the photograph, but I got to see inside the house. I got to, and just turning the pages gave me chills. It's like, this man's a real icon. So I'm telling you, the stuff I've learned with it is just amazing.
The two things you really said in that story that spoke to me were that there seems to be no hierarchy in the afterlife. So you can, I mean, seemingly just say, oh, I want to go talk to King whoever, I want to go talk to the maid. You know, there's none of this sort of hierarchical nonsense we see in the present life.
And I think there's more of a download with them, just like with our phones. I don't think they have to sit and talk like we do. I think there's more of a download. And I often wonder when I do like group readings, people's loved ones know we're doing it. So how do they know that? How do they say, let's go? And one more thing that fascinates me, I may have a reading from someone going to call me that evening from, say, New Jersey. But that afternoon, I may be having lunch here in Florida. And I'll get to see them or get a little element that I can add to the reading when I talk to them later that night. So and how do they find me here in Middleburg of all places? How do they find me?
Yeah, that was the other element I was going to mention is this whole notion of just not speaking, but consciously speaking to each other telepathically. It's probably not the right word, but just, you know, you hear a lot of this with people that have had alien encounters. They say, well, they spoke to me without speaking. And what you're saying really validates that higher realm of consciousness where we don't have to do all this tongue wagging, you know, to speak to each other.
Yeah, I'd like a little more on the aliens, but I don't find it unbelievable. I find there is something going on. We don't know what it is. And there's got to be a reason why they're just not appearing like on the Ed Sullivan show or doing, you know what I mean, publicly saying, hey, here I am. There's going to be a reason why they're staying somewhat in the shadows and making it a mystery for us. But I think there's something going on with it.
Yeah.
But I'm not real deep into it. And I don't think all these people that are seeing flying saucers and stuff, I don't think they're all nuts either. I think there's more going on than what we know. And there are many people, like with this, they're afraid to talk about it because people are going to put them down and treat them like they're nuts.
And that's one thing that I hope has gotten a little bit better. I mean, I know when I was a kid, I mean, I was born in the 70s, so you kind of get the demographic, but there was still this sort of notion of like, oh, that guy believes in ghosts. Oh, that guy believes in UFOs. There was this sort of stigma that I think really prevented a lot of people from even talking about it. And, you know.
Oh, yeah. When it started developing for me and I would be on patrol and things would come into my head, like I would see a car accident 3 or 4 minutes before they'd give it to me over the radio. I would see the intersection. I would see the smoke or whatever going on. And in some cases, I'd even reverse my direction and head in that area, say, oh, I'm going to get a call anyway. May as well start heading there. And sure enough, I'd get the radio call. But what happened is it was starting to happen with me. I was with a friend of mine walking through this little neighborhood. We had our children with us walking, and he pointed to a spiritualist church. It's kind of run down and everything. It's in Salem. And he goes, see that church? And I said, yeah. He said, those people are crazy. They think they can talk to the dead.
Oh,
I'm going, oh, what was that? I said, yeah, I know what you mean. And we kept walking. And as I'm walking by, I'm memorizing when the services are. That Sunday, I showed up at one. And here's the incredible part, too. They had a person on the altar giving spot readings for people in the audience. And some lady pointed me out and said, I know you're new to this, but why am I seeing Florida alligators and this man who looks really rugged, and which would be my dad? I said, so it all made sense, but that was almost like my initiation into spiritualism and what they believe in with it, But even those people have to hide it. And I found they're very good, wholesome people.
I know your background in the military and in the police. I mean, the sad truth of it is people in those lines of work often encounter death. They encounter the action, so to speak. Was this something that you encountered during those times in the military or the police as well? I mean, seeing deceased and all this sort of stuff and having that sort of spiritual communication.
Well, in the military, I did see it. In fact, I'm older than you. I fought in the Vietnam War on an aircraft carrier.
Man.
So, I saw enough there. But even on the police department, well, my secondary job was accident reconstructionist, which is a fatal accident investigator. So if there was a fatal in Salem, 24 hours a day, I'd get called out. I was on call 24 hours for fatal accidents. And some of them were pretty bad. I remember one in particular where this one driver killed her own mother and her 3 infants. One accident. And tell me that wasn't hard to deal with, Jeez. So yeah, you do see a lot. Had to go to autopsies on occasion. So, there was a lot. There was a lot but I took on a different attitude with it once I realized the spirit has already left the body. That's no longer a person. So it made it a little easier for me. But you do feel bad for what the family sees and what they've got to live with for the rest of their life.
So they usually weren't hanging around, trying to talk to you at a crime scene or at an incident like that. Yeah. That still sounds rough, man. Well, we got to talk about this one before we go, is this notion of pet spirits, because I think that's something that a lot of people are like, what in the devil, my dog's not coming back. But at the same time, I don't know where they are on the sentient scale of animals, but I know, kind of like you said, something that you put so much emotion into, or something that has so much of that connectivity to your own soul and spirit. I can't see that as a lofty leap there. I'd see it as pretty probable.
I have a lot of readings where people may have lost a dog or a cat or even a horse, from many years ago, and I'll describe what's coming through for them. And they're so happy just to hear from that animal, no matter how brief it is. I was doing a group reading a while back, and I remember at the very end of the night, I picked out a couple near the front, and they were holding hands, older couple. And I said, "You were hoping that I would connect with animals, weren't you?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "You lost a dog?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Well, your dog is here now, and this doesn't make any sense to me at all. He's saying now that he's up in heaven, he loves it. He can wear his dog tags again." Now, you got to admit,
Yeah.
and I'm waiting for them to go, why would he say that? So I'm waiting to hear how that would fit. I found out the dog had recently passed. They had it cremated, and within that week, the ashes were mailed to them. So the husband put the ashes on the mantle over the fireplace. He was in the back room doing something, and he found the dog tags from the dog. He took them over. This is the night that they were coming to see me as a medium. And he put the dog tag over the urn of the ashes and let them hang there. And the message from the dog was, now I get to wear my dog tags again.
So
when I heard that, it gave me the chills. It's like, no way. But I've had horses come through, and I've had live horses even give me messages, like you were talking earlier about the communication. They don't have to be deceased.
That's
So
that's just wild. And I love.
Well, let me give you this. I got to give you
please.
this one real quick, John, only because it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
I could move to Florida. Wasn't really into animals or horses. My sister was. She took me to the horse club, and one of the ladies there who had seen me at one of the shows doing readings for people, she said, "Hey, Chuck, that thing you do for, the readings, could I do that for her horse?" I said, "I've never worked with an animal. I've never even, I think as a kid, I was on a horse once, for a photograph, and that was it." Anyway, she said, would I take her horse, walk it around the yard, the field? This is at the arena. So I walked it out, and I thought, "Ooh, this is weird. It's like walking a dog, but it's so huge, this thing is big." And then I heard the horse communicate with me. He said, "I know I'm in trouble for biting. I went, holy cow. I know what I heard, and it was so vivid. So mentally, I talked back. I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I think your owner is probably going to put you up for sale, and you'll have to go to a new home. She doesn't like the way you're acting." I was hoping to get him to calm it down a little. I said, "Why are you doing this?" And this is amazing. He didn't say it, but he showed me a video of him being born. The day he was born, the mother died, giving birth to him. But in my brain, going back to the computer, oh, good. When I go back, I'm going to ask the owner, did the mother die giving birth to him, or do you even know about it? So sure enough, I go back and see her, and I asked her if that was true. And she said, yes. And I was there when it happened. And I said, well, he's also telling me that when he comes to the horse club, he's afraid of the pickup trucks that are pulling trailers because he doesn't like the diesel motors. Now, what a weird thing for me to pick up on from a live horse. And I'm asking her, why would that have a bearing? And why the distinction between diesel and gasoline? And she thought about it. And I guess when the mother died in the stall, the only way to get the body out was to get the diesel tractor. They tie a chain around, I guess, the legs and pull the mother out of the stall. So that horse is remembering within the hours of being born that his mother was taken away from him. And he also let me know that's part of it. He didn't know where he fits. Mom's taken away from him. He had to live a life without mom. And when I saw the lady after that, she told me he's never kicked or bitten. He's just perfectly normal now after going through that event. But I still, if it weren't for those validations, like her witnessing the mother passing away, I never would believe someone else giving me this story. I would have said, you communicate with a horse or a dog or a cat. But why not? It's brainwaves.
Yeah, I mean, that touches on so much. It touches on like the psychology of, in this instance, a living animal, but also that, like we talked about before, that sort of nonverbal communication that they're able to speak to you in that higher realm of consciousness and relay psychological trauma that happened as a young horse. I mean, that's really
My belief
deep.
is we're doing this with people anyway, and we're sizing them up. We're getting information through mental telepathy, but it's stored in a different part of the brain that we don't have access to. We can't see it, we can't hear it, but maybe I've learned how to tap into that, and that's part of what I'm doing. But I think, there are plenty of people with stories where I went into a restaurant, I looked at a guy and I went, I don't like him.
Mhm.
Then you go home and there he is on the news for something really bad. So I think we get the information, we're just not given a clear picture. And maybe we could tune into that. Because I've
Yeah,
done it randomly. I've
'cause
done
I
it
think that
randomly.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. We get that delay going. So.
Yeah, it's fine. I was just gonna say that really ties into, that sort of epigenetics and tying into that ancestral, like, oh, there's predators on the plane. Like we need to, that sort of goosebumps on your neck when you feel
Sure.
danger without seeing it or even hearing it. You can sort of sense what's going on.
I sometimes even hear the word no, like don't do it. It's very quick and it's no. And whatever I'm doing, I won't do it. I'll change and go, a different course or just leave. I know it's time to go. But yeah, I think they're helping us more than what we know. But I also think we're picking up a lot of stuff either from spirit or even from the person that's living in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Because you'll often hear this. It's not just Christianity, but Christianity is like my touch point. But all religions, they'll look back in the past and say, "Oh, well, all this quote unquote paranormal, supernatural stuff was going on thousands of years ago. Why aren't we seeing it now?" Maybe, to tie a bow on some of this, it's because we're so distracted. It's because of the phones, the radio waves, the television waves, the just constant distraction. It's pulling us from that sort of familial, this is my family, we've got to survive, get food, get shelter, get water, procreate. We're so distracted with 1,000 different things that it's not unless we really tune into that higher consciousness that we're getting just little glimpses of what we maybe always had around us.
And I think people get bored a lot quicker than before too. And that may be part of it. But I've never been bored, even all these years that I've been doing what I'm doing. When I get on the phone and I do a reading and I hear that real good validation in there, and all I need is one for every reading. And then you've made contact. You've connected with their loved one. So when they say, hey, I know why they're showing you this, it really does mean a lot.
And it seems like
this is a quick one.
They're kind of putting
I'm
Easter eggs in there for you sometimes, kind of like you mentioned with the pink shirt. That's such an odd thing. Maybe they're putting that, hey, Chuck, pay attention to this element. This is the key to what we're.
I remember one guy, my very first small group reading, 11 people. It was up in New Hampshire, and I lived in Massachusetts. And I was kind of excited. I thought, oh, good, I'll go up there. It's my first time doing like a little group, 11 women. And if I mess up and I don't do very well, I come home and no one knows. Locally, no one will know. So I thought it was a good deal. Anyway, I go up and it was so bizarre. Everything is fine until the woman, it was her home and her husband came downstairs with a can of beer and a cigar. And I'm just getting ready to start. In fact, I'd given one lady stuff about her mom, and I thought, oh, good, it's coming through. I don't have to worry. He came up with a cigar and he goes, well, Mr. Psychic guy, he told me right off, I don't believe in that stuff. He said, before my dad died, we talked about frauds like you, pointing to me, that I'm a fraud, which I really didn't appreciate that. I think if someone did that now, I'd probably just get up and leave.
Ticked off too.
He said, my dad and I had a key word that we agreed on, that if one of us dies before the other, and they went to see someone like me, a fraud, that we'd have to come up with the key word. Now, what are the odds of me coming out with his key word?
Mm-hmm.
And what I said is, did your dad own a diner? And he goes, yes. And did you work with him in the diner? He said, yes. I said, now I can believe the key word I'm getting. I looked right in his eyes and he said, it's Alcoa aluminum. And that was the word.
Wow.
He said, we were in the diner talking about frauds and getting a key word. And he looked at the Alcoa aluminum on the shelf. And he said, no one will ever get this. Boom. Oh, just to put a little humor,
Yeah.
he left. Let's get back to the reading. And the other lady said, wow, that was amazing. My mom and I had a keyword. What was it? I went, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Because they don't always give you exactly, what you're looking for. But in her case, they said, your mom's wearing a beautiful red dress. That was her key word, her favorite red dress. I went, oh, good. I said, but I'm not going to give everyone in the room a key word. But it was like getting the key word with me and my mom when I heard her British accent. So it means a lot to the people when they do get it.
It's kind of like that thing we were talking about before where there doesn't seem to be any hierarchy. Maybe people figure out some of this stuff in the afterlife. Like you said, that guy that was like, these are all hucksters and frauds, and maybe obviously, in the afterlife, he figured out, hey, there's more to all this than what we think.
There truly is. There really,
man.
I still get amazed all the time with stuff that I've witnessed. One more quick one, because I know you're getting short on time, but this is one where after my divorce and everything, I was dating a person that probably a 3-hour drive away. And on this one particular visit, she said, my brother's coming over tonight with his wife. We're going to have a dinner. They want to meet you. So I just want to do the setting and beautiful home and everything. When the dinner's over, we're having a wine in the living room. Anyway, and I don't usually get this, but this old man came walking through the wall, walked right in front of everyone. That's the guy in spirit. And he goes over to her brother, who's sitting in a chair looking at his phone, which he'd done most of the night. And he looked at me and then just disappeared. But what I noticed was he had an army uniform on and sergeant stripes. And he told me his name. I think it was Al, A-L, Al. Now, I didn't say anything to anyone because the woman I was dating had met me as a medium after her husband passed away. So I didn't want to do anything in front of her brother or bring it up or even bring the topic up. So anyway, this is like 11, 12 o'clock at night. Everyone left. And then I told her, I said, does this make any sense to you? I said, I watched an old timer walk through and walk over and look at your brother. I said, but he was wearing an army uniform with sergeant stripes. And he told me his name was Al. She said, yeah, my brother and I have an Uncle Al. And my brother had lunch with Al today at the nursing home. So Al is still alive. And I said, okay, I'm just telling you what I saw, but it's kind of weird that I would get his image and everything. And the next morning, we got a call at 6 a.m, her brother calling to tell us later that night, 11 o'clock at night, Al passed away. So right after he passed away, again, he knew where to find his, nephew. And sure enough, to me, I liked it because it built a better relation with me and my girlfriend at the time, because she knew I could really do it, but she was amazed. And if I didn't tell her that night, this is what I saw, I couldn't tell her the next day after she's telling me he passed away. It's not going to work. But
it's
then
strange, you mentioned they seem to sort of have this homing device on the loved ones in their life where they're going to come back and make sure you're okay.
Either that or we're really in a fishbowl and they're watching more than we're aware of,
Absolutely.
They're really aware.
Well, Chuck, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today, man. We could talk for another hour, I know, but you got stuff to do and I got to wrap things up too. But what's the best place people can go to find everything we didn't even get into your books? Gracious. You got a number of books here on your website too.
Yeah, I've got 3 different books. Actually, a 4th one that I'm in, I didn't have anything to do with writing it. And it has to do with cases, that have happened in Salem through Detective Gauthier, who wrote a book, but he dedicated a chapter because he didn't believe in what I did either. He had heard rumors, and he was having problems with someone when he was like 11 or 12 years old. He tried to save a kid that was drowning, and I can talk about it because he put it all in the book. And I guess as he swam out to help the kid was pulling him under, and he had to make a decision. Do I push him away from me and let him drown, or do we both drown together? And he had to make that. And me not knowing any of that came up with the whole scenario, and then messages and even information about the kid's father that only the detective knew about. So he put a chapter that was really very flattering in it, but he said, I could tell he didn't believe in it either. So it's kind of cool when you get people that are non-believers, but they're willing to pay attention and see what they can find out, believe in it or not. So it's pretty good.
That's got to be the Witch City Detective one, right, James? Yes. The author on that? Yeah.
Yeah, James Gauthier.
Jeez. Well, you can find all that right there at chuckbergman.com. So please go there and check out his work and get some great books and great information.
Thank you. And I do recommend that there are 3 different videos that are very informative to watch. And one more is your honey story. You can pick that from the bar on top. And this was unique, where it was a lady who didn't believe in this stuff at all. And when her daughter died, she runs you through the whole thing, how called to the emergency room. They tell her daughter passed away. She, as a mom, telling that whole dreadful story. And then what it was like to meet me and not have any real faith in what I do. But I mean, I just talked to her even on Father's Day. We had a couple of texts back and forth. And I've been to her house down in Miami several times. So it's just amazing, the wonderful people that I get to meet. This is their link back to the other side, getting to work with me or talk to me. So it's very helpful.
Yeah, it's got to be so gratifying to get to help people like this. So thank you so much.
It is.
Well, we got to do this again, Chuck, but thank you so much for everything today. And if you'll stick around for a few minutes after we wrap here, I'll say goodbye to you at the end off the air.
Sounds great. I'll hang around.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Well, folks, if you missed any of that, please check out anomicage.com. You can find all the videos there. You got the video and the audio form, so you can sort of pick your poison there if you want to. But as I always say, you can't do everything, but you can do something. So please try to get out there, do something, and make a difference. I'll be seeing you sooner than later in the Anomic Age.
Thank you for listening to The Anomic Age, a John Age project. For past shows, further info, and to comment, go to anomicage.com. That's ANOMICAGE.com. Till next time, thank you for listening to The Anomic Age.